It's a rainy morning, and I thought I'd just show you what my underquilt protector is like. This is my underquilt protector that I made, and I've slept in it so far for 5 nights, and I really like it. It is made out of the same fabric that I used to make my tarp, which is a sil poly fabric, lightweight. And I have it at 83% of the length of my hammock. I have a channel sewn in the middle here to provide tension so that it'll hug up around my hammocks and my underquilts. I've got my underquilts right in here. I've got 2 underquilts on in there. And then it cinches up and snugs up right around the base of my hammock beautifully. So if you're curious about how I made my underquilt protector, then keep watching. I have a 2-inch channel sewn in here. This is just a wide double-rolled hem with some shot cord. And then I've got one of these sort of double-holed locking things. Seems to hold this really well. It's not slipping. And then I have it attached to my hammock suspension with a mini carabiner. I've got a nice long channel here with shot cord that I sewed, and I just used the width of this fabric. So I just cut a 2-inch channel for the width of the fabric, and then I made a 1-inch casing for the shot cord, and then I made a casing for the grosgrain to secure one of these line locks. So I've got this 3-inch piece of grosgrain, the line lock, and then I've got, I think, another 3 inches or so until I get to the actual casing. And I can cinch that up any way I want. And it's on a stretch. Hold me nice and snug. This is what it looks like from the outside with that casing, and then this is what it looks like from the inside with the casing. I've got a back of an actual envelope here, and I am going to draw out my plan for an underquilt protector. So I'm going to have a basic just piece of fabric. I'm going to do a double rolled M here, 2 inches on each side to feed the suspension through. And I'm going to sew onto here a knotty mod so that I can cinch up the sides. And that'll maybe be 1 inch wide and such. And if my hammock is this long, I'm going to have my underquilt protector a little bit shorter than that. I'm thinking I'm going to use the 83%, which is my ridgeline measurement, just to kind of keep things easy. So this is our quick and easy project for the evening, the underquilt protector. I'm going to be sewing it with the same fabric that I used for my tarp because, color coordinating is important to me. So I'm going to cut a long piece so that it is the length that I need. My hammock is an 11-foot hammock, so I'm going to measure out 83% of that. But then I'm going to add 4 inches. That way I get a 2-inch double rolled hem. So I want 83% plus 4 inches for this side and 4 inches for that side. So I will be, at almost 11 feet on this project. And then I'm going to cut out some channels. I'm going to do casings for the knotty mod instead of burying it inside my double rolled hem. I just think I would like how casings look a little bit more than buried in the double rolled hem. So I'm going to do that. Check out this awesome pencil that I have. It is an auto point, and it is made in Wisconsin. I have my fabric folded over and marked, and I'm just going to line it up so that it's square here with my board, and I'm going to just cut it with my rotary cutter. I pinned it, let me move that pin a little bit. I pinned it here so that it's not going to slide around on me very much. I put a brand new blade in my rotary cutter because it was getting so dull I couldn't even cut through the nylon. Oh yeah, having a fresh blade really makes a difference. Look at that. It cut through the whole thing. Yeah, I definitely needed to put a clean blade on that. Okay. So this piece here will be the underquilt protector. So next I'm going to cut out the casings. And I'm going to want my casings to be, well, I'm going to cut the casing fabric so that it's 2 inches wide. And then I will evaluate exactly how I want it set in the seam allowances, but the 2-inch width would give me plenty of space. Because I'll be doing casings on the Naughty Mods. And another 2 inches because I'll want one on each side. And I think just using the width of the fabric here for the casings is fine. So we have 3 pieces of fabric here. We have 2 long strips that are the width of the fabric, and they're 2 inches wide, and these will be the casings for the Naughty Mods on the underquilt protector. And then I have got my long piece. So the first thing I want to do on the long piece is I want to do a double rolled hem on the side. And I am just going to do a quick and easy double rolled hem on the side with my rolled hem foot. In order to use my double rolled hem foot, I'm going to need to cut some strips of tissue paper. And this is just the kind of tissue paper that you use to wrap around shirts, and you give them as gifts, or that you use to put in gift bags. And I'm using, not my fabric scissors, but I'm using just a pair of old paper scissors. So I'm going to just cut a couple of pieces here so that I have plenty of thin strips of tissue paper to put in the sewing machine. And these are, well, each one of those cuts is actually 4 pieces. If this technique looks interesting to you and you'd like to learn more about using the double rolled hem foot, then I will suggest that you check out my other video. I have a video specifically on how to use this foot with outdoor fabrics that you may find interesting, and I will put a link to that video in the description box below. I finished the double rolled hem on each side, and I'm now just stripping away the tissue paper. So now at the top of our project I want to do a 2-inch double rolled hem. So I want to fold over 2 inches and then fold over 2 more inches, and I'm using the grid that's on my board here as my guide, but if you don't have a grid, then just line up your ruler by all means and use that. But we'll want to just fold this over so that we get a 2-inch double rolled hem. I'm going to put pins in it. And then we'll just sew a straight seam down the hem to put our channel in for the suspension. I'm going to put my regular foot back on my machine. And I'm going to run a straight stitch down the way here. Just right along the edge. You don't have to be super duper close to the edge. I mean, we just want this to hold the suspension for the quilt, so if you need to use your tails here to get it started and in the feed dogs, because this is slippery stuff, then just use your feed dogs to get it started. And I'm just lining up the edge of the fold with the edge of my foot, which will give me a 1/4 inch seam there. As I come up on pins, I'm just stopping to remove my pins. I'm not tugging on the fabric, I'm just letting the feed dogs pull it through. But I am smoothing it out here so that I don't get bunching. And I'm holding this piece in this hand so that it feeds in smoothly. And now I have the channel where I can feed in my suspension. And I'll do this to the other side. I have both channel ends pinched together here, and I am just stretching out the entire underquilt protector so that I can mark the center point with a pin. And I'm going to do this on both sides. That way I'll know precisely where the center of the underquilt is from both sides. I'm going to prepare these channels for casings, and so to do so I'm going to sew a 1/2 inch double rolled hem on each side. Once I sew the 1/2 inch double rolled hem, I'm going to sew a 1/2 inch single rolled hem down the entire length here of the channel on both sides, so that we can have that ready to prepare and attach as casings for our shock cord. I've got the 1/2 inch pinched, then I fold it over, slide it under my foot, and just sew it in place. And there you've got a 1/2 inch double rolled hem on the sides. Now I'm just going to do a 1/2 inch, and I'm not going to be super precise. I mean, who's going to follow me with calipers and say your double rolled hem or your single rolled hem isn't the proper size? I'm going to just run a seam down on the single rolled hem, and I'm going to just guide it by hand so that it stays about the same width. As I am doing this, I am just eyeballing it, and I am pinching down with my fingers. That pinching for you is occurring off camera, but I'm just pinching it in place. And I'm trying to just keep the fabric lined up here with my foot. As I get to the end here, I'm just going to pinch it down with my finger till I get to the very end. But I'm not actually going to remove it. I'm just going to flip it up. And then on this side, with the foot up, I'm going to fold it over so that I get the same sort of size fold here on the other side. And then I'm just going to go right down the line here. Okay. That does it. I'm folding these casings in half, and then I'm going to mark the center point of each one with a pin. That way I can line up the pin in the center mark of our underquilt with the pin in the center mark of this. And I'll know exactly where the centers are. Here we have the inside edge of our underquilt, and there's the pin marking the center. This is the inside edge here of our casing, and we have our pin marking the center. So I'm going to line up those two pins, and then I'm going to pin it right there. So the centers are marked, and I'm going to just put pins all the way out with these lined up with the edge to the edge. We're going to run a straight stitch down both sides of this casing, but we're going to make an effort not to close off this end. We want to keep this end open. Lock the stitch. This we really want to be somewhat thorough about locking the stitch, because this is actually going to be under tension. And then as we sew, we just want to make sure that we're always lining up that top fabric with the fabric underneath. And we're just going to put an even stitch in there. I'm lining the fabric up with this inside part of my foot there. That's where I'm targeting my fabric, both the top and the bottom fabric, as I'm going through here. When we get to the end here, we'll just lock our stitch. And we'll go back up to the top and sew the other side of the channel. And on this side we want to sew as close as we can to that edge, so we're going to line the edge of the channel up with this side of the foot this time. Now we've sewn the first side and we have our casing and our channel, so we'll sew the other side. So we're going to feed shock cord through the end channel now. I have the safety pin and my shock cord piece, and just feeding it through this double rolled end channel that we sewed. Here I've got some green mini carabiners. They match my quilt. They'll look nice there. And I'll put the other one on the other side. I think these underquilt protectors are an interesting idea that I really want to try, especially if it's going to be raining. I've got this as waterproof, so I won't get a lot of splash up. And if it's going to be windy, it'll block the wind, and it won't rub the heat out of my underquilt. Keep me toasty warm. Alright, so we've pulled that through. Give myself plenty of line here. feed both of those through. A little overhand knot on the end just to prevent that line lock from slipping off. And then I'll put my mini carabiner on there. And that can hug the quilt, and it can prevent the underquilt from getting wet or windblown. I've got some line locks. These work really well. I like these. 4 of them here. So I'm gonna put these on a little channel and sew it into the quilt. I have some 1/2-inch grosgrain ribbon that fits right inside the channel, so I'm going to cut pieces that are 6 inches long to use. I'm going to need 4 pieces. I have matching thread in my bobbin and my needle, and since I'm going to be cutting this, I'm not going to bother locking my stitches, so I'm just going to go straight down, because I'll be sewing across, so locking the stitches when you're going to be cutting through the stitches and sewing across really doesn't matter. You know, I'll sew this way, fold this over, I sew across because that way I don't have to cut threads. Cutting threads is one of those things I don't enjoy doing. I've made these little casings for my line locks, and here's the webbing. This is grosgrain ribbon, and it goes right through the line lock, and then I've got it pinned in place. So I'm going to position these so that I have a few inches between the end of my casing for the shock cord, and then I'll sew that right in place. So very similar to how I sewed the casing on, but then I'm going to do some reinforcement X's like that. I'm just positioning my line lock piece so that it's a few inches back from the end of the casing channel, and I'm going to just do a stitch down to reinforce the end here. I'm just going to back it up to the beginning because I think I would prefer to, sew down in this direction instead of sewing in the middle. So I'll now take my seam this way, get to pretty close to the end, spin it in this direction and remove my pin, put the foot back down, now spin it this way. In this direction. Okay, the entire thing is now encased, so all I really need to do are my reinforcement stitches. I'll just put 2 X's in. I'm going to mark where I want my X's with my pencil. I'm going to put pencil marks here, that way I know where to have my X's as targets, and that'll give me a pretty good, nicely shaped X. We'll do it that way. I'll kind of scrub with this so I can actually see it. Okay, so I'm going in this direction and my target is there. Now I'm swinging it around and my target's down here. I'll swing it across the bottom. Target's our goods here. And then we'll head right on back to the top. My target will be here. When I get back there, I'll just lock my stitch. And we'll call that a day. Now it's just a matter of feeding this shock cord through the line lock. Like that, and then I'll put a stopper knot here on the end so that it's not going to accidentally get pulled through and I'll lose my end. So this will help me, I'll be able to tighten this up pretty simply by just pulling on it, and then the release is also quite simple. So here I have my attachment point for the shock cord, and I have it encased, and this is what it looks like from the other side. So I'll do this on all four sides. As you can see, making an underquilt protector is really just that simple. It doesn't require a lot of sewing skills, and you certainly wouldn't need to use a ruled hem foot to get the hem there. You could just fold it over. But if you're interested in making an underquilt protector, then I really hope this video will help you. And if you've already made an underquilt protector, I'd really like to see what you've done. Thanks very much for watching.